Chargers free agency has been cooking up, and it isn't done from there, but we are recapping a couple parts of the latest signings that the Chargers have made during free agency involving Hayden Hurst, Poona Ford, and Troy Dye. We break all those signings down here on Chargers Syndicate. On everybody, Jake Silva here on Charger Syndicate, bringing you all the latest news on LA Chargers football. If it is your first time here on the channel, I encourage you guys to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on future and past videos, to keep you on the loop of everything Chargers news. So the Chargers free agency has actually been pretty decent thus far. Now, of course, there's a couple of other breakdowns, and we'll have more videos up on that. But I figured we would get into part two of the free agency market with 3 players to start with, and then we'll have another part for the next one. But the 3 that I wanted to focus up on and recap with the Chargers free agency that we know they had to plug in a lot of holes and a lot of needs for the Chargers to look a lot better and to also look a lot more stronger going into the 2024 season. So the one signing that we want to start with here on the video is tight end Hayden Hurst that they ended up signing from the Carolina Panthers. Now, Hayden Hurst, what's a funny side story about this, I actually met Hayden Hurst in person years ago in 2018 when he was on the other side with the Baltimore Ravens, and it was my first ever NFL game against the Chargers, and I got a chance to help a really good, lucky fan out there get an autograph signing from Hayden Hurst. Really nice guy. But now he is a part of the Bolt fan club now as a part of the Chargers, and they've signed him to a contract as well. So Hayden Hurst, as we break down with his stats, Hayden Hurst is the kind of tight end that's pass catching and is also somebody that kind of gives you a little bit more of leeway when it comes to midfield catches. So Hayden Hurst, all throughout his career from 2018 all the way to this point in 2023, he had spent 2 years with the Baltimore Ravens in his rookie season in 2018, where he played 12 games, had 13 catches after 23 targeted times, 163 yards, 12.5 yards per play, and had 1 touchdown score in that span, but then started to get more involved in 2019 with Lamar Jackson's offense and is also very familiarized with Greg Roman's offense in Baltimore as well. 16 games he's played, he had 30 catches for 349 yards, 11.6 averaging a play, and 2 touchdown scores up to that point. Now, Hayden Hurst was kind of ascending as a pass-catching tight end, trying to get a little bit more play game, a little bit more repetitions. So this was where Hayden Hurst really started to take off from there. So after the 2 years that he spent up in Baltimore, and when they started to go a different direction, that's when they started getting Mark Andrews more involved. And then at the same time, they ended up drafting Isaiah Likely, which was another really good pass-catching tight end. They decided to move on from Hayden Hurst, and that's when he decided to go to the Atlanta Falcons, where he really did boom up in the first year in 2020 with the Falcons moving forward. And under Arthur Smith's offense at that point, the Falcons was very much a decent couple years for him that really showed what his true potential was. In 2020, he had 16 games he played with 56 catches, 571 yards, 10.2 yards averaging a play, and 6 touchdown scores up to that span. And this is something that Hayden Hurst really did take off of in 2020. He did not look as like a quote-unquote elite tight end, but is basically somebody that you can trust as being a pass-catching type tight end when all receivers have basically been covered, whether it's man-to-man or it's basically, cover 1s or 2s types of defenses opposing. But this is where Hayden Hurst really does kind of serve as the ace in the hole for the Chargers and for Justin Herbert, in which they really needed to fill that hole. Now, they initially had signed Will Dissly in the previous video, and as far as that reason, Will Dissly would be more of just a run blocking, pass blocking type tight end, but he'll sometimes get open here and there. But Hayden Hurst is also another, secondary option at tight end as well for the Chargers moving forward. I think it's a decent signing. It's not great. It's not as sexy, but I think, honestly, it's something that you would need as far as a pass-catching tight end and somebody that's a secondary receiver out in that field. So the second signing that the Chargers will go through here in this video, we'll talk about defensive tackle Poona Ford. Now, this was a really, really good, solid signing for the Chargers initially. And I actually like this one because the Chargers have had such a hard time trying to defend the run and trying to stack up on that defensive front side. And that's been one of their problems. They've been on the lows as far as their their league records when it comes to run defenses and opposing rushing yards. So that's something that the Chargers really had to improve on. Now, Poona Ford, he'd spent majority of his career in Seattle, where he really started to kind of make a little bit more of that boom. And so from 2018 all the way to 22 with Seattle, and then initially this past season, he joined the Buffalo Bills, being along with Ed Oliver and the rest of everyone in that Buffalo front line. So the Seahawks at the time, which is also no stranger either, as far as for somebody who really has mastered up as far as the front line support and also trying to stop opposing rushes. So for Poona Ford, he's not somebody that basically got up to the quarterback as much, in the first 2 years of 18 and 19, but 20 all the way down to 22, he really started to show his worth and how much that he is a threatening force, to opposing offenses. So in 16 games he played in 2020, he had 40 total tackles, 25 of them that were solo, and 15 assisted ones with 2 sacks and 1 forced fumble in the middle of that in 2020. So he really started to become an ascending player, much like we talked about with Hayden Hurst. But this is basically, Poona Ford's time where he's going to get more repetitions. He's going to start to basically look at as an ascending player, and especially under Jesse Minter's defense, this is a guy that's going to be a complete run stuffer. And so Poona Ford, I really do like this signing much more to that case because it eliminates, more and more rushing yards from the opposing offenses. And then it also helps with situational defense if in fact offenses go for 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3. So this is really just a solid, piece from here. But also, in 21, he had 17 games he played, 53 total tackles, 23 of them solo, and 30 assisted. So he started to get more involved with his teammates, especially as stopping the runs anywhere and any shift that they could possibly go, and had 2 sacks in the middle of it. So I think we've seen a lot of the best days in Seattle, in my opinion. But Buffalo, I mean, you're a part of a really good rushing defense and a part of something that I think really likes to, stuff the run any way that he can. But I think in part of Jesse Minter's defense, that is a very likable signing there for the Chargers, and Chargers fans are already loving the signing already. Now, the last one is basically somebody that we would utilize as far as the special teams is concerned, is linebacker Troy Dye. Now, Troy Dye, what's funny about this is you go back to in 2020, Troy Dye, an Oregon product, was very close with Justin Herbert in their Oregon days. So this is a really good reunion for the two of them. And Troy Dye, to be honest, I think he's definitely a guy that loves to tackle, loves to kind of bring that defensive brute force, in my opinion. And for somebody that I would say for special teams, needs is somebody that's going to, at the very least, stop opposing runners from when it comes to punt returns and whatnot. This is going to be a guy that I think could really be an ace in the hole and has only been in the league since 2020. So all throughout his 4 years in Minnesota, as you can see, he's had a little bit more of some playing time, and he's been really utilized in the special teams department. And Troy Dye, I really like his presence up on here, but he really started to show up in 21 and 22, where he had 17 games in both of them. One of them, he had 20 total tackles, 12 solos, and 8 assisted. But the thing that really sparked up for Charger fans was this past year with Minnesota, where he had 17 total tackles, 11 of them were solos, but he had 1 sack and 1 forced fumble in the middle of it. So he's a guy that brings a lot of brute force for special teams, and also somebody that if somebody went down on the defensive side, he's the next guy that's going to be brought up. And so I think Troy Dye, love him as a plug-in and play type of player, and I honestly do think he's going to serve a lot better stuff for the Chargers moving forward. So that's going to do it here for me on Charger Syndicate. Tune in for the next part 3 video for free agent signings, as well as we're going to start to break that down as well. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell button, keep you up to date, and we will see you guys on the next edition of Charger